Hello everybody and welcome back to Lost Planeswalker. You are here with me, Jesse, the Lost Planeswalker, and today is my favorite deck that I'm going to be doing for Bloomburrow here. It's Clement, the Worrywort. Clement here is a frog druid for 1 green and a blue, legendary creature with vigilance. Clement, the Worrywort, or another creature you control enters, return up to 1 target creature you control with lesser mana value to its owner's hand. In addition, frogs you control have tapped, add green or blue, spend this mana to only cast a creature spell. This is a frog deck, baby. I think maybe 98 of the cards in this deck have a frog on them. There was a couple that you just have to include, like Soul Ring, that didn't happen to have a frog on it, and our basics, of course. But I did the absolute best I could because frogs are my favorite creature type. And I think it ends up being very fun. Clement here, being a frog kindred guy, has some really fun strategies. So that's the way I'm going to lay out this deck. We're going to talk about all the frogs in this deck and then very quickly go over some good stuff. But I've laid out the frogs based on their mana value because I want to talk about a couple really good frogs of each mana value that are either good to play or good to bounce, and I think could be very powerful. So let's dive right in and look at those 1 mana frogs. We got a lot of new frogs from the set, so you'll see a lot of those here with Mist Breath Elder, Sunshower Druid, and Valley Might Caller. Mist Breath Elder here, 1 mana creature frog warrior with at the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature you control to its owner's hand. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on this. Otherwise, you may return this to its owner's hand. Great way to put frogs back into our hand in order to continue this loop. But it's just going to get bigger for bouncing stuff back, and we have some very good, powerful pieces that are going to help us ramp and help us do a lot of fun stuff. So Mist Breath Elder is perfect. Another perfect little guy here is Sunshower Druid, single green creature frog druid, with when it enters, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature, and you gain 1 life. A great piece to bounce. It's very cheap, or keep it on the board and use it as a 1 mana dork. Then we have Valley Might Caller, single green frog warrior with trample. Whenever a frog, rabbit, raccoon, or squirrel you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on it. We're going to be bouncing and playing frogs, so this could very easily get to a 15/15 creature or larger during the course of a single game. And the other 1-drop frog we have here is Spore Frog, of course. Very good card. Notably, this is only going to be a one-time thing. There really isn't much recursion in this deck, but the decks that do play Spore Frog know just how powerful it is. Now let's move on to those 2-drops here with a Dowerport Mage, Jade Avenger, and Poison Dart Frog. Dowerport Mage is 1 in a blue creature frog wizard, and whenever 1 or more other creatures you control leave the battlefield without dying, draw a card. Perfect for Clement, just bouncing those frogs back into our hand. Then for 1 in a blue, return another target creature you control to its owner's hand. If we don't have a way to do this, or maybe our commander isn't on the battlefield, just pay 1 in a blue and you can return it. Jade Avenger, 1 in a green creature frog samurai with Bushido 2, meaning whenever this creature becomes blocked or blocks, it gets +2/+2. A 2 mana 4/4? Yeah, I think that's going to be pretty great, especially if we can add some additional bonuses here. Our opponents might forget it has Bushido, and we can secretly get through to deal some extra damage. Then Poison Dart Frog, 1 in a green creature frog with reach, tap it to add 1 mana of any color, or 2, this gains Death Touch until end of turn. One of my favorite little guys from Lost Caverns of Ixalan, and very powerful card. The other 2-drops we have here are Bellowing Crier, Papercraft Decoy, Polywog Prodigy, which I'm going to talk about for just a second. This is a very, very powerful, inexpensive card right now. I think some copies are going up to $20, which is just insane, but it has Evolve, which is one of my favorite abilities, but whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell with mana value less than its power, you get to draw, so pretty sick there. We also have Pawn Prophet, and finally 3-Tree Scribe. Moving right on to those 3-drops, we have Clifftop Lookout, Long River Lurker, and Rapid Frogantula. Clifftop Lookout, 3 in a green creature frog scout with reach. When it enters, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a land. Put that card on the battlefield tapped, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This is a great card to bounce, getting us lots and lots of ramp. Long River's Pull, creature frog scout with ward 1. Other frogs you control have ward 1, which is very nice. A ward lord. Then, when Long River Lurker enters, target creature you control can't be blocked this turn. Whenever that creature deals combat damage this turn, you may exile it. If you do, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Very cool little guy there. Then we have Rampant Frogantula, 2 in a green creature frog trample. This gets +10/+10 for each player who has lost the game. You don't have to knock him out, it just gets bigger, which is excellent. Then when it deals combat damage to a player, you may mill that mini card. put a number of lands from among them on the battlefield tapped. Now, this came from the Modern Horizons land deck, and you can see that baked into its core, but just big frog with trample. I just love it. It's got a guy in its mouth. This is such a fun card. So those other 3 drops we have the deck here are Krakenora, Halo Hopper, Leapfrog, Plexcaster Frogling, Steeple Creeper, Sticky Tongue Sentinel, and Water Spout Warden. Moving right on to those 4 drops here, we have Lily Splash Mentor, Omnibon, and 20-Toed Toad. Lily Splash Mentor, 4 mana creature frog druid with reach, 1 green and a blue, exile another target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it, activate only as a sorcery. Pretty cool way to exile and bring stuff back, get some cool ETB triggers. Then we have Omnibon, 1 green blue frog creature with tap this, target creature becomes a 3/3 frog until end of turn. What a great way to kind of just wreck blocking or attacking by just turning something into a frog. This is such a fun guy, and I really love him. Then we have 20-Toed Toad, 3 and a blue creature frog wizard with your max hand size is 20. Whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures, put a +1/+1 counter on 20-Toed Toad and draw a card. Then when it attacks, you win the game if there are 20 or more counters on it, or if you have 20 or more cards in hand. What a great little guy. He's going to draw you cards, gives you max hand size. There's alternate win conditions built right into him. I don't think you're actually going to win off of him very likely, but when you do, it's going to be epic. So the other 4 drops we have here are Dream Dew Entrancer, Glornock the Omnivore, Splash Lasher, and Tree Guard Duo. And lastly, because we don't have anything above 5 drops here, we have Froghemoth, Haze Frog, and Octomancer. Froghemoth is 3 green creature frog horror with trample and haste. When it deals combat damage to a player, exile up to that many target cards from their graveyard. Put a +1/+1 counter on it for each creature exiled this way, and you gain 1 life for each non-creature card exiled this way. One of my favorite cards from the Forgotten Realms set. This was the set I started playing Magic, and he is just a silly little boy. Exiling, getting bigger, gaining you life. He's got trample and haste, so the turn he comes down, you can attack. It's such a fun card that can really mess with some graveyard players. Haze Frog, 3 green creature frog with flash. When he enters, prevent all combat damage that other creatures would deal this turn. Is a really great card here because it's similar to Spore Frog, but it comes in any turn you want for a very cool combat trick. One of my favorites. And then Octomancer, 3 green and a blue creature frog druid with gift and octopus, which is just hilarious. You gift an 8/8. But at the beginning of each end step, create a token that's a copy of target creature token that entered the battlefield this turn. So you also get an octopus, and every other turn, if another creature token comes into play, you can also steal that. So the other frogs, lastly here we have are Excavating Inurid, Galloping Lizrog, Sky Skipper Duo, and Species Gorger. And now I want to get into even more froggy nonsense, but before I do so, I would just like to say thank you for watching. Please consider subscribing. It would mean the world to me. So first off, we're going to look at things that turn your opponent's stuff into frogs, because that's something frogs do. So we have Amphibian Downpour, Polymorphous Jest, and Turn to Frog. Amphibious Downpour, 2 and a blue, enchantment aura. This has flash and storm. You enchant a creature, enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a blue frog creature with base power and toughness 1/1. Very cool here with storm because of our commander bouncing a ton of stuff back, getting to create even more mana with all the frogs on our board. Remember, when you enchant creature, that doesn't just affect your board, you can pick any creature on the board. So what a great way to turn all of your opponent's stuff into frogs. Next, with Polymorphous Jest, 1 blue instant. Until end of turn, each creature target player controls loses all abilities and becomes a blue frog with base power and toughness 1/1. This is also an instant, so you can do this as a combat trick and just wreck your opponent's board, even with your small frog creatures. Then, of course, Turn to Frog, 1 and a blue instant. Target creature loses all abilities and becomes a 1/1 blue frog until end of turn, with the perfect flavor text of Ribbit. So great. But lastly, I want to talk about some new cards. I know there's a ton of new cards we already talked about. Some other support kind of cards that I think could be very good in this deck. We have Communal Brewing, Fisher's Talent, and Portent of Calamity. Communal Brewing here is 2 and a green. Enchantment, when it enters, any number of target opponents each draw a card and put an ingredient counter on it. Then you get a number of ingredient counters +1 put onto Communal Brewing. Then whenever you cast a creature spell, that creature enters with X additional +1/+1 counters for a total of up to 4 additional counters whenever a creature enters. That's definitely going to make our frogs just a little bit more scary and really fun to play. Fisher's Talent is up next. This is a simple card that says at the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may reveal it if it's a land. Create a 1/1 fish creature token. If you revealed it this way, then draw a card. Then every time you upgrade it, it just gets a little bigger. So if you would create a fish, now you create a 3/3 blue shark. And if you create a shark, then you create an 8/8 blue octopus. So a very fun card that you can kind of escalate as much as you want. But honestly, drawing a card and making a fish seems pretty good to me. Then Portent of Calamity, X and a blue sorcery. Reveal the top X cards of your library. For each card type, you may exile a card from among them, put the rest into your graveyard, and you may cast a spell from among the exiled cards without paying its mana cost if you exiled 4 or more cards this way. Then put the rest of the exiled cards into your hand. A great way to draw a ton of cards. You get to cast one of them for free if you exile enough. Seems very fun. So the remaining good stuff in this deck here is Arcane Signet, Commander Sphere, Croaking Counterpart, Druidic Ritual, Eliwick Thumblestrum, Harmonize, Howling Mind, Into the Floodmaw, Kasmina's Transformation, Long River's Pull, Might of Masura, Nissa Who Shakes the World, Overprotect, Polywop, Primal Prayer, Rapid Hybridization, Rites of Flourishing, Runaway Together, Season of Weaving, Soul Ring, and Wishing Well. Now, a note I'd just like to say, of course, in all of my commander decks, I don't build out the land base because that can be very varied. This deck right now is coming in at around $100, which might be perfect for somebody who wants to play a fun little silly deck like this. But if I added a land base and it was several $100s more, maybe somebody would say, no, this isn't for me. So always take that with a grain of salt. Build this deck however you would like. And with that, I would just like to say thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this silly little frog deck. And let me know in the comments down below if there are any frogs or great cards I missed. You know, frog adjacent cards as well. I would love to hear about it. Clement here is probably going to be one of my favorite new commanders for a while. I've really been looking for a Simic commander to build, and this is perfect. In addition, if you would leave a like, share this video with a friend, and subscribe, that would mean the world to me. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Now today's Scryfall card of the day is Thirst for Meaning. A sip of recollection, an ocean of regrets. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you later, Planeswalkers.